All right, so I own the moment. Owning the moment. What does that mean? Well, that was really on my heart to talk about today. You know, just certain areas in our life that we need to own something. But first I want to talk about owning the story. And when I say the story, I'm talking about Jesus Christ. I'm talking about owning your relationship with God. You know, in our society and culture that surrounds us, they praise and they encourage ownership of stuff. Specifically, most of the time, it's material, success, right? We even shared it here when we said it. It wasn't a trap like, oh, you said it, you said car, you said bed. No, but I'm saying we praise that. You know, the amount of things that you have that you own in your life, that's a good thing. That's the sign of success. You know, but even though in our culture now, too, even with the philosophy of the world we live in and the culture we're in nowadays, they're really, when it talks about religion, it's like, yeah, you can own it, you can believe what you want to believe, but you need to keep an open mind. You need to keep an open mind to the other things around you. You know what? That's great. You believe what you believe, but don't really share it that much. Don't talk about it. Don't push yourself on those around you. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? That we praise one side of it, but on the other side, our society and the world around us, especially here in the Western Hemisphere, in America, it's like, great, you can own it, but don't say anything about that. So I started thinking more and more, man, that being politically correct, I believe this, but you know, you believe what you want to believe, and what we believe, it's all right. And we hold hands and all together. Listen, I'm all about reaching out, and I'm all about building relationships with anyone. But it doesn't mean that we have to step back from what we own, what we believe. We need to own the story. I want to share something with you. This is a historical story. You might be familiar with a man named John Hancock. Anyone? All of you should be raising your hands. You learned about this in 7th grade social studies. John Hancock. Even that name has become so familiar to us that we use it in slang for someone's signature. John Hancock is the one whose signature is the biggest one on the Declaration of Independence. It's become so popular, people say, I need your John Hancock. It's kind of more of our parents' generation, you know. They say that. It's not very common here. It's like, need your John Hancock. Right there. It's like, who is that man, and what does that mean? You stop. So, but if you talk to your parents or grandparents, they're like, oh, yeah. My dad used to say it all the time, like, put your John Hancock down there. I'm like, what does that mean? Why? Stop saying this. Okay. So, in the end of the 18th century, the Revolutionary War, it's on the brink. It's about to happen. The colonies are getting restless. They want to declare their independence. Right? So the Revolutionary War, it's the colonies against who? Great Britain and England, the Redcoats. Any patriots in the house? Right? All right. Yeah. One. So this is happening, and during this time, Thomas Jefferson writes up what we have now as the Declaration of Independence. Now, a lot of times we see pictures and portraits of this taking place, the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it's all the delegates around with each other doing that, John Hancock included, their signing. But that's not actually historically accurate. They would have all signed at different times. And John Hancock would have been the first person to sign the Declaration of Independence. And it would have been actually weeks later, the rest of the people would have signed it. So there's some battle between, why did he sign it so big and all this. And as I was researching, it seems to be common that they said the reason, John Hancock was the first one to put it there, but the reason he made it so big, so large, and so easy to read was because he was setting the standard for the rest of the men and the delegates who would sign it behind him. Because here's the deal. By signing that was treason to Great Britain and England. And if they would have lost the Revolutionary War, guess who would have been hung? John Hancock and all the rest of them. They were traitors. But yet we look at it in retrospect, and what are they to us? They're heroes. So John Hancock takes that there, and he puts it bold to show his boldness. My name is on this. I'm owning this revolution, whether it takes my life or not. And he was hoping that it would lead and set a pace for those behind him. See, I think in our walk with Jesus, in our relationship with God, we need to begin to take ownership of it. Not be so nervous and afraid or so much on the brink. Listen, if we want to see the world changed by the story of Jesus and what he's done, we need to own that story ourselves. See, so often, and listen, I'm not preaching at you guys. Listen, I'm talking with you because as I was doing this, I was getting convicted in my own life, which happens all the time. Man, so often I sit there, I want to see the world change for Jesus. I want to see great and mighty things done. I want to see people's lives changed, or I want to see this happen. But am I really owning the story of Christ? Because if I'm not, then I'm never going to see that change happen. So I think that's the first step we have to realize. Let's take ownership. Because some of you might be sitting there and you're in this place, your time in your relationship with God where it's like, you know what? My parents always did this thing called religion and Christianity and church. My mom and dad, my family kind of just always did this. And so it's kind of taking you to a place where you've just kind of drifted into it. You've never fully taken ownership of it yourself. Listen, all of us here are over 18. 18 or over. You're an adult. Legally, you're an adult. Some of you might live at home, still with your family and with your parents. Others of you might not. But there comes a point in your life you need to take ownership of your walk with God and your relationship with God. Because if you don't do that, it won't hit that depth that you need it to be. You won't own it for yourself, and you'll be so easily swayed. See, when I went away to Oral Roberts University, I had a moment in my life where I could choose to kind of rewrite everything. I could be really whoever I wanted to be. No one there knew me. No one there knew my past, who I was, nothing like that. And it was in these moments that I really had to begin to take ownership of my walk with God, of my relationship with God as my own. Not just because of my family, mom and dad, where I grew up, what was familiar to me, around me. And it was when I did that that my love and my passion and my life really started to get transformed. So you might be sitting there and you're like, I just feel like my relationship with God is so stagnant. It's just so blah. Maybe you need to look and reflect a little bit and say, am I really owning this? Am I really taking this as my own? But then there's another side of it too. Some of us just can't make up our mind. It's like we're on the fence. We got one leg. Do you see that? You like that? Is that cool? I don't know. I feel like I'm about to do like a Broadway, like people are going to come from behind those. We're all dancing. Welcome to my mind. Okay. So I'm the student in the school. It's doodling. They're like, oh, is he writing notes? Not at all. It's a whole different world happening here. Oh, wow. So we got one foot in the world. We got one foot in church, our relationship with God. We can't make up our mind. And there's a scripture in Matthew 6:24 I want to read to you. This is Jesus speaking. He says, no one can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to one and despise the other. And then he says, you cannot serve God and wealth. And that word wealth meaning riches, basically identity, what defines us. See, we can't be there. I think we just struggle and we battle with that. And some of us might be there. It's like, man, I love the taste of this and what's in the world. And listen, that stuff is sweet and it's tasty for a moment and it's bitter to your soul. So there's no denying that. Sin can be very fun at the moment. But after that moment is gone, it's bitter. It's painful. It's going to eat you away. It's going to kill you. It's going to rot you and destroy you. But we're stuck in that place. One foot in, one foot out. And we live in the moment. So we live in the moment of experience here with God, but then at the same time here in the world and with relationships. Do you feel the tension there? Because we're not choosing to own something and say, this is who I am, this is who I will be, because both kind of taste good, and we're just still kind of dancing on the line there. We go situation by situation, location by location, where you're at. This is who I am, but then where I'm here. And that's where we struggle when people say, oh, you're hypocritical and all this stuff. But you know what? Really what it is we're just indecisive. We can't make up our mind. What do we want to own? What story do we want to own as ours? But see, Jesus says you cannot do that because you're going to one love master and you're going to hate the other. See, the message of Jesus Christ is a difficult one because it demands change. Matthew 16:24-25, this is what Jesus says. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone wants to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who save their lives will lose it, and those who lose their lives for my sake will find it. Deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. That's a difficult message. And even in preparing this, I'm like, man, why did I have to share on this? This is hard, God. This is a hard thing. Demanding us to take action. Why couldn't it be a little bit more of a gentle message in this? But you know what? We don't live in a gentle world. Man, things are colliding with us every step of the way. Things are constantly going against our worldviews, our perspectives, our beliefs, our convictions. So we can't give a soft message because it's not going to do anything. And Jesus here says, take up your cross and follow me. Own it. Don't drag it. Take it up. And you know, back then when someone was going to be crucified, they didn't willingly grab their cross and walk to their death. They were fighting. They were battling. And Jesus, it says, though, embraced his cross. He owned it, and he went for it. And see, when those moments happen in our lives, it's where it follows up there in Matthew, and it says, for those who save their lives will lose it, and those who lose their lives for my sake will find it. And when we take ownership of our walk with God, of our relationship with God, we'll begin to find out who we were meant to be. We'll begin to come to that fulfillment. Is it always easy and breezy and, oh, this is a beautiful field, I'm running through it? Is that what you guys think of? Easy and breezy, is that what you think of? Like a field and you're like running through it, grass, and people are waving at you. Like, yeah, cheer on. No? No one? You guys are like, he's weird tonight. It's all that scaring. Okay, so, right? That, like, oh, is it? No, it's not easy. But it's fulfilling. It's how we really find ourselves. We choose to lose ourselves, embrace the cross, and follow. And after Jesus says that statement there in Matthew, guess what? He also says right by there, it says, and he looked to Jerusalem. Do you know why he looked to Jerusalem? He knew that's where he was going to embrace his cross for what he was going to do for us. You know, but there's a different area in our life I think we need to start owning. That's the season we are in. The season we're in. Right? Some of us are in a great season of life right now. It's like, here, I'm where I wanted to be. This is my profession. This is my relationship. Here I am. Others, it's like, this season stinks. Nothing that I had planned is happening right now. I'm floating around and here and there and all this type stuff. But you know, sometimes in those moments, in those seasons of our life, we feel that it doesn't really count. What do you mean by that? Well, what I'm saying is it's not real life yet. And so when something's not real life just yet, sometimes make mistakes. And we're like, it doesn't really matter. I'm not really married yet and have the profession that I want. I'm in this kind of stage in my life. So you know what? It doesn't really count. I've talked with friends before who have shared with me. They were in seasons of their life. They were away from everything, and it was kind of a time where they felt it didn't count. The mistakes they were going to make and the things that they were doing, it's like it wasn't real life yet. So they took those steps into places and areas of their life that they shouldn't have. But here's the danger of that lie. It is real life. And those things haunt and follow you for the rest of your life. That's the truth. So sometimes when we're in that transition, it's like, man, it doesn't count. Mistakes don't matter here in this season. because this is a blah season. But they do. Actually, it's in those moments that a lot of times the biggest regrets we have, that's where it comes out of. But it's an interesting lie, isn't it? How that can sometimes hijack what we're called to do. Actually, we in our culture use a statement, sowing wild oats. Have you heard that statement before? Oh, Jimmy's just sowing wild oats. I will give you the definition of what this means. It's not the Urban Dictionary. This is a real dictionary. To do wild and foolish things in one's youth. A lot of times it has to do with sexual things. But that's what it's talking about, sowing wild. We use that statement. It's like, dude, it's okay. You're 19 years old? Sow some wild oats, have some fun. Doesn't matter, real life hasn't started yet. Then when you graduate college, then when you get your profession, then get serious. Oh, actually, then get serious about God. Start doing what's right. And when we hear that even now, it's almost like some of us want to be like, yeah. But see, that's the world we live in. That's the message they're saying to us. But that's not true at all. It's in those moments that if you talk to people, they'll say that's where the greatest depression came from in their life. The greatest scars that they carry came from that thinking. And that's not true. See, we need to take ownership of the season we're in fully. It might be transitional. It might be a moment. It might be 1 year. It might be 6 months. It might be 2 years. Sometimes we want to phase out of it. And then we're just like, whatever. I'm here, live at home with my mom and dad and kind of doing this and part-time school here. And we phase out. Listen, anyone a track runner here or was a track runner? I wasn't. I'm just raising my hands with you. I wasn't. I wanted to be. A relay race. We've watched them on the Olympics, right? The handing off of the baton. You guys have heard this story before in this analogy. But it's such a good one about transition. Because if you take that and you translate that in the moments of our lives that are quick, but so vital and so important. Because we all know that it's in those relay races, a lot of the wins come from how quick they can hand off the baton as team members there. It actually takes place in seconds, but it can change the whole race. If that runner isn't fully there, the one who's coming to his end and the other one who's about to begin, if they're not fully there in that moment of transition and they drop the baton, it's over. Olympic runners, all that they've worked for years, their whole lives, in that moment, because they weren't focused in that transitional moment of seconds. How much more when we take that to our lives? In these seasons that we might feel, what is this? We need to begin to own it. We need to be all there. It is important. Every chapter of your life is important. How angry and frustrated would you be if you were in the middle of reading a book and you're on chapter 5 and you turn the page, you're in chapter 6 and it's blank. That's the noise blank pages make. If you didn't know, in the world of blank pages, that's the noise they make. Okay? So you'd be like, this book, eBay, Amazon, cheap. You'd be so frustrated. See, we laugh here, and it is funny, but we do that in our own lives. Just leave it blank. Whatever, man. This isn't where I want to be. You know, it's in those moments, it's in that process, in those chapters, a lot of times, that the most amazing things take place in your life. Because if you can learn to own every moment that you're in, if you can learn to be fully there and say, I'm going to give it my all, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be committed, I'm going to do this, you watch how that muscle that you build will make you so successful throughout the rest of your life in the hard moments, the difficult times, and the good times. Don't phase out. Because it's also when you're going to get thrown on your back when something unexpected happens. For instance, thumb wrestling. Anyone done it before? Also, I was going to have you guys thumb wrestle people next to you, and it's like, that could get weird. So I didn't do it. It's like someone coming to a wrestling match, right? A real wrestling match. And they're getting down, and then all of a sudden the guy's like, puts his thumb out, and then just gets body slammed. The guy's not all the way there. The thumb wrestler is like, oh, I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's why he's wearing spandex and a helmet. All right? But see, in our lives, sometimes we're not fully there in the season we're in. We come in, whatever, boom, we get hit. And that hit home to me because I can think of times that I just kind of zoned and phased out. God could have done so much in my life. He could have done so much in my life. And I missed out on it because I left those pages blank. And lastly, I want to talk about owning the vision of this community. I'm going to invite the worship band to head up here. And guys, if you just stay focused as they come up here, I know this is a smaller stage and stuff, and you can see it, but owning this community, the table. All that we're about here at the table, the main thing is building a community. That's what we want. And that's what the vision is. And sometimes we want something out of something. It's like, I want this, I want that, but we don't put something into it. I'm in no way attacking you guys or saying, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that we want you to feel part of it. We want you to be involved in this community. See, I don't want it just to be a concert you come to every Friday night. It's a gathering. That's the truth. I don't want it just to be a crowd, not a crowd. It can be a crowd. No, we want it to be a community. We want it to be a community here. There's enough concerts and there's enough crowds everywhere we go. We're not going to see change in things. We're not going to see growth in ourselves. We're not going to see maturity and growth and healing even in our lives if we don't learn to be a part of something that's bigger than us and fully devoted to it and pour ourselves into it. I hope you hear my heart, because I just think sometimes we've defined community in a wrong way, and we haven't fully owned what we're involved in, because we live in kind of a consumer mentality. But if you really want to see change, if you really want to see your friends at work, your friends at school learn who God is, if you want to see their lives changed by Him, be restored, get freedom from addictions and things that are holding them down, then you need to be a part of something that's authentic, a part of something that has depth. So when you bring them into it, they're seeing that. They're not seeing just a crowd of people, but they're seeing a community of people. And so, how do I do this? What are you talking about, Pastor Stephen? What are you saying? Do I have to come and be involved in here every single week and do this and do that? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being intentional. And the first step of it is to know who's sitting next to you, what they're walking through. And so on my heart, I really felt that this is what we're going to do tonight. If all of you stand with us together, find 3 or 4 people around you. And for the next just 2 to 3 minutes, while the band is playing and stuff, this is not your time to give your own mini message to each other, okay? This is your time to ask each other, what can I pray with you for? And pray with each other. Oh, this is cliche. No, not at all. This is you extending yourself outside of your own world and realizing the person to your left or right who you might know or you might have never met before, that they know, wow, we're really not alone. Because we always say that here. You're not in this alone. And then sometimes we all walk out and go to our own worlds there. But we want to see that begin to change. We want to see a true, authentic community of people who really do care about one another. Let's own it. And that starts in that first step of knowing who's sitting next to you and praying with them. So get in little groups of 3 and 4, just right around you, and pray for one another right now in this time. Share quick. Don't be the person who shares for all 3 minutes and then no one gets to get prayed over. But share quick and pray for one another.